Hey everyone, I have just completed Necroscope by Brian Lumley, notable in this instance for its very used, very worn, well loved, we might call it, pre-used condition. I picked this book up from Leakey's second-hand bookshop up in Inverness. If you don't know it, just have a quick Google and have a quick look around. It is a phenomenal second-hand bookshop in terms of size and scope and everything in there, and it was amazing. And the problem was, this was all I could find. This was all I could find that I wanted. The only other thing that I thought about getting was an Aldous Huxley book that was hardback, but the cover was ripped off partly. The pages were on the verge of decay, and they wanted £16 for it, which I could not justify. So, in desperate times, I went back to the same piece. I'd already looked through every single book they had, and I did finally spot Necroscope, which I have heard about, and I thought I'd read. So let's get into it. Right. Now, here we see, this is a story of vampirism, necromancy, supernatural mayhem, and shrieking bloody terror. Now here's the thing, in all the books I've read so far, horror doesn't come through for me. Horror in books so far, now I can imagine books that I could read that would bring me horror, but in the books mostly that claim horror, that's sci-fi or fantasy, supernatural elements, that kind of stuff, I don't find horror. Now what I did find in here, very early on, and I imagine this is well known because this is a fairly well known book, there is a chapter in here very close to the start, and it is one of the most grotesque and sickening things I have ever read. It's so grotesque and sickening that I almost stopped. I just couldn't see the reason why you needed so much detail, why the scene needed to be so long. It really was, it was pushing me, not because it was horror, but because it was just gross. It was bloody rank. But I pushed through it, and all of a sudden I meet I was going to say the main protagonist. There's two protagonists really. There's the good and the bad, and there's Harry Keogh, who is a boy when we meet him, and it concerns his side of the story, concerns his coming into his power, which is obviously supernatural, and the fact that he is, as far as we know, the world's only necroscope, as he terms it, which means he can talk to the dead pretty much anywhere in the world. He can focus in on someone who's been dead in the ground for who knows how long, and have a conversation, use their knowledge, sometimes even have them embody his body for the sake of their skills. So there was I think it was a Marine or something, like someone in the army, and when he got into a fight in school, this person who was in the army who was dead used his superior fighting knowledge to best this bully, which was fantastic. Everything that happens to Harry Keogh is a gem. The other protagonist, as I think is, because it's 50-50 split pretty much across the book, is I'm going to call him a Russian for all intents and purposes, a character called Dragasani, and Dragasani is kind of the worst. He's pretty bad. What can I say about Dragasani? He is disgusting and a reprobate and immoral and many other things beside. And he is in a continuous meeting and relationship with a vampire who is stuck under the ground from where he was put, I think it was centuries ago. and the vampire under the ground has a connection with Draghesani, and Draghesani can hear his thoughts and all this stuff. This little picture here doesn't mean much. Doesn't mean much of anything, I'm afraid. Now the book itself, the story is, I mean, like I say, when you're with Harry Keogh, it absolutely flies along. It's fantastic, I think. It's amazing to see how he comes into his powers and what the powers are and what they can do and all this kind of stuff. Now, right towards the end, right towards the climax of this book, I have to say it lost me a bit. It was perfectly understandable, but the powers involved just went off the charts. They, you know, left all humanity behind, kind of off the charts powers, which I wasn't expecting, and I didn't honestly think it was needed. For that reason, I will not be picking up the next book, Vampiri, or the other ones, The Source, Dead Speak, Dead Spawn, but because I'm not picking that up doesn't mean I didn't enjoy this. I really did, but you have to be aware of that opening salvo on behalf of Draghesani and his story. It is quite sickening, to the point where, I mean, I just couldn't believe what I was reading, to be honest. I was like, why is this in here, and why is it in here so early? I felt after I was past it and I was into Harry Keogh and his story, and it was a completely different, it was like a breath of fresh air. And I felt that that chapter was like a test, because things get a bit gross here and there, but on the whole, that by far is the worst right at the start, and I just don't understand why you'd place it there. I just, it boggled me. But yes, if you are strong of stomach and strong of mind, then Necroscope might be a really good book to read. The stuff with Draghesani and the vampire, which drives most of Draghesani's story, is pretty good. It's a kind of, will he raise the vampire from the dead kind of story going on. And Keogh and him gradually kind of get drawn towards each other. Yeah, and I haven't even covered the best point. I doubt very much I'm going to find it on a flick through, but the genius that is Brian Lumley had ESP as supernatural talents, right? He's combined ESP with the word espionage to make a kind of ESPionage, right? And that is the best combination of words. I was so happy when I saw it. I was like, I reckon he came up with that idea, the ESPionage, and then he thought, right, let's make a book around it, and this is what he came up with. So yeah, if for no other reason, you have to read this book because it's got one piece of smart wordplay, and that's my final word on it. Go read Necroscope, people. Just beware of that chapter. That's it. That's all I got. See you later.